In fact, you were not allowed to say anything negative about anyone in the family ever. You couldn't even call them a bad name. So that obviously inspired creativity. And so you have to use words that are not technically bad words and not technically name calling in order to get your point across. And so that was, one of the very early sort of mental experiments that this household, led me to develop. But dinners on our household were always, it was always about what was happening in school, what was going on in politics, and then once we finished that, there would usually be a grammar discussion. And there are people here who've attended those dinners and can testify to that. And on Sunday night, Mom would take out a calendar, her calendar, paper calendar obviously back then, and go through day by day who, between me and Carrie and Annie, my sisters, who was doing what over each day and who had to be where when and what was happening. And I'm surprised, I thought everybody did that. Did you guys not all do that every Sunday night for your parents? Maybe everybody did, I don't know. But I thought that was just sort of the typical, obvious, standard thing everybody would do because it's so obvious. Why would you not? And I think some of that probably, has either that has filtered through to me, or maybe it's filtered through to my choice of a bride, Wendy, who shares similar characteristics as well. And because this wouldn't be happening without Wendy thinking through everything. And what I didn't know until I met Wendy was how many of the characteristics that make New York unique are actually Dutch. And you guys laugh, but all that means to me is you didn't complete your reading. Dan McCollum did. Rob Birch did not. And if you do the reading, you will understand that Amsterdam, back in the time of New York City, was one of, if not the most prosperous cities in Holland, and it was also the most diverse city in Europe. There are more mosques here than in any other part of the continent, and it was also incredibly democratic. And if you think about the colonies of the U.S., most were homogeneous and were very religiously intolerant and very specific to whoever was there. New York City was unique, and it was driven by commerce and by multiculturalism. And a lot of that actually has bled into the fabric of the United States. And so there's no better place to host this dinner than in the former headquarters of the company which actually colonized New York City and ran it for the first 40 formative years of its life. And so we're in the West Indy House, which actually the statue downstairs of Peter Stuyvesant, the first governor of New York, which at that point New York is smaller than it is now, and it was we call him maybe the mayor, but he was the very first person to do this. This whole establishment did that, and I think that is the perfect place to talk about its influence. If you go downstairs, you'll see a map which has all the eastern seaboard in Dutch names. And you'll recognize a lot of those names now. And what I think you realize is that a lot of people from Holland traveled very far to colonize the US, but they also traveled far from everywhere else to colonize the rest of the US. What made it different was their ideas and where they were from. And that is also about you guys. And so this toast is to you guys because many of you traveled far to be here, but it's not really about how far you went or where you came from, it's what you bring with you. And it's also where I picked you up. And as you expect, many of you, I'm a bit of a pack rat, and so there are people here from all over, and some of you have seen each other, have gotten to know each other a little bit over time. And so what I want to do is thank you guys for coming into my life and our lives. Because of each of those steps, those jobs, those schools, those experiences, you guys are what endures. And these relationships are actually the only thing that persists from all of those experiences and places. And not only they persist, but it's actually the living forward with you guys and continuing a relationship beyond those that makes it special. And so we've all grown together as a part of that. And so I think that is pretty interesting and pretty special. and I thank you all for coming and for being part of this journey.